Good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk to you about sleep. And the way that I'm going to address sleep is through the medical context of it. So we've designed a new, sustainable and purposeful technology to address sleep apnea. What is sleep apnea? Sleep apnea is where you stop breathing multiple times during your sleep. You either stop or you reduce. You breathe during your sleep to get oxygen into your blood, to feed your brain and the rest of the body. If you stop breathing, you reduce your oxygen levels. So stopping breathing is called an apnea. Reducing breathing is called a hypopnea. There's two ways of stopping breathing during your sleep. Firstly, it could be that your brain forgets to tell you to breathe. This is called central sleep apnea. You can tell by the way I'm not a medic. So it's central sleep apnea. It doesn't send you a signal to say time to breathe. 1 in 10 people who suffer from sleep apnea suffer from central sleep apnea. And then there's the other sort of sleep apnea, which affects the 90%. And this is called obstructive sleep apnea. So here, the airway at the back of the throat collapses during sleep. And so it obstructs the breathing. And as I say, 9 out of 10 people suffer from this. Sleep apnea, and primarily obstructive sleep apnea, they cause a range or foster a range of medical conditions. Because you're not getting enough oxygen into your blood, you end up with hypertension. This can result in increased cardiovascular disease. You can have increased probability of stroke. And it also leads towards diabetes. So that's the medical consequences. The economic consequences are potentially even worse. There's research which shows that about 15% of work-related accidents are caused by fatigue, much of it related to sleep apnea. So, can it be treated? Yes, it can. It can be treated quite easily, and it improves the patient's quality of life. It reduces accidents, and amazingly, treating sleep apnea reduces overall healthcare costs. So, sleep apnea, though, is increasing worldwide now. And this is because obstructive sleep apnea particularly its prevalence is driven by increasing global obesity. So we've now got about 1 in 8 people in the world who are estimated to suffer from sleep apnea. That's about 1 billion people, 10,000 people here on the Isle of Man. It's an incredible percentage of people, which has virtually doubled in the last 10 years. Now here we come to the start, really, of it. Why are only 20% of these people diagnosed? 80% of the people around the world are not diagnosed for sleep apnea, and yet it reduces the cost of healthcare in the future. So these guys are untreated. People with moderate to severe sleep apnea can be treated effectively. There's CPAP, which you may not know, continuous positive airways pressure. They're wearing a mask during their sleep. There's mandibular devices, and then there's some horizon technologies where they're coming on, where they're looking at things like TENS machines, which are just used on the neck to give very small electric shocks to make it so that the airway continues opening. So treating sleep apnea transforms lives. Why aren't more people diagnosed with it? Well, the current devices for diagnosing sleep apnea, they're really complicated. They're really expensive, and they have wasteful. They're wasteful in their diagnostics. For some strange reason, and because I said at the start that sleep apnea is stopping breathing, the majority of the current devices don't actually monitor your breathing. They monitor everything but your breathing, your chest movement, but that doesn't say you're not breathing, because you can move your chest. They monitor rapid eye movement. Doesn't say you're. So they monitor what we call a load of proxies. Well, you don't call them a load of, I do. They monitor proxies, and then from that they say, so the person has stopped breathing. Because they are complicated to analyse, we have a lack of clinic capacity. Because they're expensive, they're only done by specialists. The clinic capacity then forms the bottleneck in it, because we don't have any GP screening tools. My partner and I, when we started on this journey, came to the conclusion that 90% of patients with sleep apnea could be diagnosed with a simple device. 40% of the people who present with a sleep condition, sleep-related condition, don't have sleep apnea. They are snorers. It's like kind of like, gosh, they are snorers. Then there's another 50% who have, clear as anything sleep apnea. Then there's 10% who are really quite complicated in their diagnosis. So those are the people that the sleep clinic should be really concentrating on. So we have developed a simple, lightweight, wearable device. This, a small mask with, well, that bit being the action bit on it. It records the actual events in the breath pathway. What you can see, I think, here, lots of lines going long vertical lines. That is when the person, this particular person, has stopped breathing during that hour. Yes, see a few eyebrows raised there, during an hour there, and then they've gasped during their sleep to start breathing again. Because the way an apnea works is that you stop breathing you don't inhale. So we can all hold our breath by breathing in and holding it. Try breathing out and holding it, because that's an apnea. My partner Andy in this, he has 60 of those events an hour, 1 a minute. He is treated for his sleep apnea, and so he was sort of the motive force behind this. So the lower diagram there shows how our simple device clearly shows at the start there a person breathing normally. It's going up and down, our pressure signal on it, and then it flat lines. And then you see the person gasp in on it. So we then use cloud-based analysis using model-driven engineering and AI. I mean, it's nice and simple. We have a simple single signal. And the results are then available to the clinician in minutes. Nice and clear. So the concept behind it is to increase the sleep clinic capacity. We're designing reports for patients, primary care, and for specialists.
1 minute.
Thank you. So model-driven engineering clearly identifies the sleep events, as you can see in red, and we also create the SpO2 proxy. So why is it purposeful and sustainable? We use low-cost components, we post them to the patient, that reduces the CO2 footprint, they send them back to us, we recycle them and repurpose them, minimizing landfill. We're already UKCA registered and MHRA registered. And with that, I'd like to thank you all.